All right, today we're jumping into a really wild ancient story from the Jataka Tales. I mean, think about it. It's part high-stakes psychological experiment, part clever heist, and it's got a huge lesson about trust baked right into it. It's quite the story.
So here's the question that gets this whole thing started, and wow, is it a loaded one. Can a woman ever be truly trusted? And this question didn't come up in some quiet, scholarly debate. Nope. It was thrown down during a pretty intense, philosophical argument between a king and his priest, all while they were playing a game of dice.
Okay, so let's get into the setup here. The whole story really hinges on this big wager that comes out of an argument they've apparently been having for a while.
So you've got these two main players, right? On one side, there's the king, who happens to be a bodhisattva, an enlightened being. And every single time he'd win a throw of the dice, he'd say this little verse, something like, all rivers bend, all forests are wood, and hey, give any woman a secret chance and she'll do wrong. But then you have his Brahmin priest on the other side, who just absolutely refused to believe it. He'd argue back, even as he was losing all his money to the king, game after game.
So the Brahmin, he's basically lost everything at this point, and he's just done. He's had it. He decides the only way he's going to win his fortune back and finally prove the king wrong is to do something, well, something pretty extraordinary. He's literally going to create the perfect, completely faithful wife. From scratch.
And this is where things get really, really interesting. Because the Brahmin's plan, well, it's meticulous. And honestly, it's totally extreme. We're not talking about finding a good person. We're talking about engineering one.
So get this. First, he uses his knowledge of omens to find a pregnant woman who he knows is going to have a daughter. The very instant that baby girl is born, he adopts her and just spirits her away. He raises her in total, complete isolation. I mean, she never sees another man, ever. The only male human she ever knows is him. He figures, hey, if I do this, this total seclusion has to guarantee her purity, right? This will be the ultimate proof for the king.
So feeling pretty pleased with himself and his little experiment, the Brahmin goes back to the king for another game of dice. The king starts up with his usual verse about women, and the Brahmin just smiles and says, not mine. My wife is the exception. And you know what? For a little while, it actually works. The Brahmin starts winning again. But the king is nobody's fool. He's got a feeling something's up. So he decides, you know what? It's time to put this little theory of the Brahmins to a real ultimate test. So what does he do? He goes out and hires the cleverest rogue in the entire kingdom for one mission: get inside that fortress-like house and seduce the Brahmin's wife. I mean, this place has 7 gates. It sounds impossible. But this rogue is smart. He sets up a little perfume shop right nearby and just waits. He watches and he waits for his chance. And that chance comes along in the form of the wife's old servant.
And the rogue's plan? It's pure genius, pure theater. The second he lays eyes on this servant, he just throws himself at her feet, crying, "Mother, where have you been all my life?" It's this huge, dramatic performance.
And to really sell it, he's got accomplices planted in the crowd who all start saying, wow, the resemblance is uncanny. The poor old servant is totally overwhelmed and completely buys it. So from then on, her son gives her all the best flowers and perfumes for her mistress, all for free. The hook is in. So a few days go by, and then the servant finds the rogue looking like he's on his deathbed. He tells her this sob story about how he's fallen desperately in love with the Brahmin's wife just from hearing her stories. He says he's going to die if he can't meet her. And of course, the servant, desperate to save her long-lost son, agrees to help him.
The plan is so simple, it's brilliant. The guards were already used to seeing the servant carry big baskets of trash out of the house. So this time she brings a big basket in, claiming it's full of flowers. But of course, hidden inside is the rogue. He gets past all 7 gates, meets the Brahmin's wife, and, well, they start an affair. He actually ends up staying hidden inside the house for several days.
All right, so now we get to the big moment. This is where that perfect little world the Brahmin built starts to just completely fall apart.
It all starts one evening when the wife comes to the Brahmin and says she wants to dance for him. All he has to do is play his lute. The Brahmin, he's totally delighted. He thinks it's a wonderful, affectionate gesture, so of course he agrees.
But then she adds this one little condition. She says, "Oh, but I'm just too shy to dance if you're watching me. Can I please blindfold you?" And the Brahmin, totally head over heels and suspecting nothing, just says, "Sure."
So there he is, playing the lute, completely blindfolded. And as she's dancing around him, she makes this other kind of weird request. She says it's just a playful part of the dance, but this is it. This is the signal for her hidden lover to come out.
And the Brahmin, totally lost in the music, just says, "Go ahead, hit me." And bam, the rogue sneaks up right behind him and gives him a hard shot to the head with his elbow.
The blow is so hard, it practically makes his eyes pop out. He's totally stunned. He reaches out, grabs his wife's hand, and says this incredible line. "Your hand is so soft, but that blow is really hard." He has absolutely no idea what just happened. A little later, the rogue makes his escape, hidden in the basket just like before.
So you can imagine what happens at the next dice game. The king just lays it all out on the table. The rogue, the blindfold, the elbow, everything. The Brahmin is crushed. But wait, there's one last twist. The wife demands a trial by fire to prove she's innocent. But just as she's about to step into the fire, the rogue, disguised to a crowd, runs up and grabs her hand, and she uses this to cleverly say her oath is now void because another man has touched her. She gets out of it, deceiving everyone right to the very end.
So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, this is where we get to the story's real moral, and there's a lot packed in here.
This verse kind of sums up the moral of the story as it was originally understood. But really, if you dig a little deeper, the lesson is bigger than that. It's a timeless warning, you know? The Brahmin's experiment was a total failure, not because of his wife, but because of his own folly. He thought he could control and engineer loyalty, but he learned that genuine virtue, well, it just doesn't work that way.
And this is really driven home by the title of the story itself, Ambafuta. It means raised from the womb, which points right at the wife who was the center of this whole failed experiment. I mean, he treated a human being like a plant he could just grow in a greenhouse, and completely forgot that you just can't lock up free will, not even behind 7 gates.
It's a really complex story, isn't it? And yeah, its original moral is definitely something that makes us think differently today. But it's still such a fascinating look at these big ideas of control versus freedom, and deception versus, well, deceiving yourself. Thanks so much for digging into this one with us. And to close out, we just want to leave you with this simple wish.